Hello everybody, welcome to Live from the Tower, your weekly Destiny show. We have some more news from Bungie regarding changes that are coming to the final shape, which leads me to believe more and more that the final shape and its 3 episodes may be the final chapter of Destiny 2, and whatever lies beyond will be Destiny 3, but I'm not here to talk about that again because I know how much you guys loved it in the comments last week. This change, it may be minor to some, but when you really think about it, it's a half revert and a half progression. So the big change is Master Raoul is going to be a vendor, and I mean like a proper vendor with a rewards track and the ability to focus much more than he has now. For my D1 veterans, you'll remember that Raoul was a traditional vendor in Destiny 1. He had his own reputation track, and when you ranked up, you would get a reward package, which you could then decrypt at the Cryptarch. And I believe there was even, if you maxed out to level 30 on his reputation track, you got a special emblem and stuff to kind of commemorate it. It was fun. So Bungie in the final shape is going to make Raoul your one-stop shop for all new legendary armor. Let me make this clear. Lost sectors will still drop new armor. However, the way they're making it sound, instead of dropping the armor piece, you will then get an engram, which you then have to go into crypt. I'm not entirely sure how focusing for new armor pieces is going to work, or the cost for that matter. So the way they pitch this is Raoul will have a reputation track. The way to rank up this reputation track is to decrypt and focus engrams. Those will be your prime engrams and your exotic engrams. They didn't say if the cost for already unlocked exotic focusing is going to change. They did say, however, once you have maxed out his rep to rank 17 and reset the track, you will then be able to focus an armor piece for 1 exotic engram and 1 exotic cipher. And this is relatively big because the current cost for focusing engrams is, I think, it's a bunch of materials, or it's a couple exotic engrams. I mean, exotics nowadays feel like legendaries back in Destiny 1, where they're dropping at a relatively regular pace, and there's a decent way to kind of farm them and get them and do what you need to do. Unlike in previous seasons of Destiny 2 and Destiny 1, where exotics were really that coveted rare item. And this comes down to a couple things. One of them is that Destiny 2 has been running since 2017, so the game is a bit bloated. By this point, most of the player base will already have unlocked everything, if not most things. And the other is just the way they're pumping out gear towards us. It just makes it an oversaturation almost. Very similar to the mount problem that Blizzard has with World of Warcraft. There's just so many and they keep coming out, and it's just an overabundance. They're doing all of this with Raoul, and on his reward track they showed upgrade modules, enhancement cores, all the kind of stuff. I think there's an Ascendant shard in there. All the stuff that you would expect from the Cryptarch for leveling up. That's pretty big because now this could alter the path on which you get exotics. They did mention that Strike Force will still drop an exotic, but they will not be adding new exotics to Strike Force. That makes sense. Once the final shape comes out, unless there's specific challenges or quest steps, we probably won't be going to Neomuna too much. Hell, you're probably not going to Neomuna a whole lot of the time now anyway. In my opinion, that's always been a problem with Bungie, is they never do enough with their patrol zones, and they always fall to the wayside when the new expansion comes out. I think that Europa was criminally underutilized with Beyond Light. I think the Throne World was underutilized with Witch Queen. Lightfall, even though it wasn't the best, I think Neomuna was still underutilized. There was nothing to kind of keep you coming back. You could do Strike Force. You could do the other public event type of activity that shows up. I'm blanking on it now. But besides that, there wasn't really anything to do. They did mention a couple weeks ago that Hawthorne was also going to be getting a reward track. This is what makes it feel like Destiny 2 is about to go into maintenance mode. Now, I don't want you to freak out because we are getting 3 more episodes. We're getting 200 levels in a battle pass. We're getting new quests, new armor, new weapons. across a period of weeks. It's going to be a 3-act structure. And we're getting 3 of those, and they're meant, at least this is how it's been pitched to us, to be bigger seasons. So now you have these episodes, which are meant to fill the gap, and that's what I really believe they are. I believe they're stopgaps, because you don't release 3 bigger content drops and say, well, none of them are really connected, you can play them in any order. I mean, that's kind of how they've been pitching seasons since they went to the a la carte style pricing. So now you have Prismatic, which we talked about last week, which is massive. You have Transcendence, which is huge. You have Cade 6 coming back. And then you have every major vendor in the tower finally be on the same page. They're all the same reward track. They all have focusing. They all have materials you can get from upgrading your reputation with them. Something that probably should have been done a lot sooner. I don't know why it took so long for them to do this unless they just couldn't figure out how to make it work. What this signals to me is Bungie going, okay, everything's kind of in set, everything's kind of in place, everything's all put together, and now we can ship out this content with, you know, whatever team we're leaving on Destiny 2, and we're going to keep focusing on Destiny 3 and the next saga. Again, I mentioned this last week. If you don't think a Destiny 3 is coming, I don't know how to explain it to you any better. Luke Smith literally came on the TV and was like, hey, more Destiny 2 is coming. Those are the episodes. And then more Destiny is coming. There will be more Destiny. You don't market an expansion as the end of a saga and say, but there's more coming. The universe isn't done without planning something bigger. And I think everyone can kind of agree. Destiny 2 cannot continue to be supported in the long term. We're not getting another 7 years out of Destiny 2 with bigger expansions. I don't see how that's physically possible when you look back at Rise of Iron and they literally had to drop old consoles. The fact that Destiny 2 is still being supported on PS4s and what was it, Xbox Ones is mind-blowing. I play it sometimes on my PS4 when I'm not at my normal setup, but it doesn't play. It plays fine. It doesn't play well. It just doesn't feel the same on PS4 and Xbox One. And now that you've kind of tied up this 3rd act of your saga, you can't launch the finale and not include the players who are still playing on these pieces of hardware. I don't see how you can genuinely believe that Destiny 2 could be supported in the long term on last-gen consoles. I could understand you make the argument that Destiny 2 can still be supported if they drop last-gen consoles, and then maybe, because you don't have that all hogging up the back end on Bungie's end, maybe they could rework file sizes, they could rework this and that, who knows? But like I mentioned last week, we already know they've been complaining about file size since Beyond Light. That's why sunsetting existed. So I really don't see how we can progress if we don't either launch an entirely new platform, and it doesn't have to have a 3 on the box, or we continue to support our current platform and drop older pieces of hardware. We're at the point where everything's kind of lining up and getting set to be put into a maintenance mode. Destiny 1 had the same thing. The fact that the Cryptarch can now decrypt exotics for 1 engram and 1 cipher, and ciphers are relatively easy to get, it signals to me, once again, Bungie's ready to move on. And honestly, I'm really excited. All the changes we've seen come out of Bungie over the past few weeks are really cool. They're not huge jaw-dropping things like the new enemy faction or Transcendence or Prismatic, but they're little quality of life changes that I think the game needed for a few years now, and the fact that we're finally getting them is pretty cool. They're reworking shader icons in a very interesting way. So the icon will now show you all the colors that are going to be used on the shader. It's going to show you the materials, and there's a whole explanation on the blog that kind of explains it's going to make it more readable, and it's going to make it, I would say, more approachable, because you look at some of these shaders and then you put them on your armor and they look nothing like the icon. So their goal here, as they've laid it out for us, is to make it more where you see a shader and you know that your armor is going to look like that shader. Not a huge, big, massive game-sweeping change, but it's a quality of life change that a lot of people have actually wanted for a long time. There's been countless times over the past few years where people have complained about the way shaders don't look how their icon looks. And now Bungie's making it so it's more readable, it's more approachable, it makes more sense, and it's just something to make the game feel a little bit better overall. So you take that, all the vendors being at the same reputation style, you take the ability to skip new light and just get a set of gear and the quest from Ikora. The more I just look at all these changes, the more I'm excited for the future of Destiny, the final shape and beyond. And I know a lot of people are cautiously optimistic, and that's a good thing. Lightfall really burned us as a community. So to be cautious about the final shape, but still excited, I think is great. It's important to temper expectations all the time, but at the end of the day, if you know you're gonna play it, and while you're playing it, you're having fun, in my opinion, you just go have fun, run with it. Have fun and enjoy yourself. Life's too short to be angry and pissed off and hypercritical all the time. There's a time and a place for being critical and critiquing and giving honest, hard feedback. The rest of the time, in my opinion, it's more important just to have fun. And I think these changes are going to make the game more fun across the board. But with all that being said, thank you so much for listening and watching. And until next time, fly safe, Guardians.